Welcome to NTD Evening News. Our top story tonight, President Trump issuing a harsh warning to Iran. That's as the U.S. destroys the country's largest bridge, and Pam Bondi removed as Attorney General, her response and the president's statement. Mario Tzu at the White House. 40 nations are coming together to discuss reopening the Strait of Hormuz. Arian Pazdar has more on their strategy to reopen the critical waterway. Several doctors and nurses in California are accused of taking part in a hospice fraud scheme. Prosecutors say they used fake claims to collect millions from Medicare. Christina Corona reports. The health department says microplastics are everywhere, including in our organs and blood. Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announces a new national program to tackle this issue. Jason Blair reports.
This is NTD Evening News, live from our global headquarters in New York City. Here's Tiffany Meyer.
Good evening and thank you for joining us tonight. President Trump warning Iran there's more to follow after the U.S. destroys the Middle East's largest bridge. This coming a day after the president's primetime address to the nation on the progress of Operation Epic Fury. We now go live to NTD's White House correspondent Mario Tzu at the North Lawn. Mari, good evening.
Hey, Tiff, good evening. That's right. President Trump today posting a video of that B-1 bridge in Iran, the country's largest bridge, severed by U.S. airstrikes with the description, quote, the biggest bridge in Iran comes tumbling down, never to be used again, much more to follow. The president goes on to say that it's time for Iran to make a deal before it's too late, and there is nothing left of what he says should become a great country. And Tiff, this is coming just a day after President Trump's primetime address on Operation Epic Fury. Take a look.
I can say tonight that we are on track to complete all of America's military objectives shortly, very shortly. We are going to hit them extremely hard over the next 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to bring them back to the Stone Ages where they belong.
President Trump saying he's negotiating with a new, more reasonable regime, but listing off targets if no deal is reached, including around oil and energy plants, which he says will be hit simultaneously. The president also urging countries that depend on oil from the Hormuz Strait to instead buy oil from the U.S. and build what he calls the delayed courage to secure the critical shipping lane. This comes as he says he's strongly considering pulling the U.S. out of NATO ahead of an expected meeting with NATO General Secretary Mark Rutte next week in Washington.
The United States imports almost no oil through the Hormuz Strait and won't be taking any in the future. The countries of the world that do receive oil through the Hormuz Strait must take care of that passage. They must cherish it.
President Trump saying the conflict is nearly over, the core strategic objectives are nearing completion, while repeating his vow to never let Iran obtain a nuclear weapon.
So why do they continue to refuse to turn over 60% enriched uranium? There's only one reason, and that is because they want to hold it and keep it to one day use it to build a bomb. That's the only way. And they were going to hide behind all of these missiles, all of these drones, their Navy and their Air Force.
Every American can look forward to a day when we are finally free from the wickedness of Iranian aggression and the specter of nuclear blackmail.
Meanwhile, Tiff, on the anniversary of Liberation Day, President Trump today adjusting his national security tariffs on steel, aluminum, and copper imports to cut duty rates on derivative products that are made with those metals. And in a move to secure drug supply chains, President Trump also is imposing tariffs in an executive order on imported patented pharmaceuticals, hitting most of those with 100% duties, while offering 0 or 20% rates for companies that agree to onshore production and sign deals for favorable pricing with the U.S. Tiff.
Certainly a lot happening on this one-year anniversary of Liberation Day. And Mari, President Trump today announcing that Pam Bondi is out as U.S. Attorney General. What is the latest on that?
Yeah, that's right, Tiff. And in that same statement, President Trump is calling her both a great American patriot and a loyal friend. He's also praising her for overseeing a crime crackdown that he says has brought murders to their lowest rate since 1900. And the president says that she will be transitioning to a very important job in the private sector, and that, meanwhile, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche will be moving in as acting Attorney General. Bondi has responded, saying that she's, quote, eternally grateful to President Trump for putting his trust in her to make America safe again, and that she'll be using the next month to transition Blanche over to the Attorney General position. And Tiff, meanwhile, the president is also announcing today that he'll soon be signing another executive order to resume pay for the Department of Homeland Security. Back to you.
All right, Mari, thanks for those updates. A panel gives President Trump the go-ahead for his plan to build a grand ballroom in the White House. The National Capital Planning Commission today giving its final approval for the project. The panel voted 8-1, with 2 commissioners voting present and 1 abstaining. The 12-member commission is in charge of approving construction on federal properties in the Washington, D.C. area. This comes just 2 days after a federal judge ordered a halt to construction unless Congress approves it. The judge's decision impacts construction activities, but not the planning process. The Trump administration is appealing the ruling. The planned ballroom will occupy 90,000 square feet of space in the East Wing of the White House. The president says it will be able to hold 1,000 guests and be the finest ballroom of its kind anywhere in the world. Around 40 nations today coming together to discuss reopening the Strait of Hormuz, which the Iranian regime is forcibly keeping closed. The international efforts come just a day after President Trump said securing the vital waterway is a job for the entire world. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pasdar has the story.
We have seen Iran hijack an international shipping route to hold the global economy hostage.
The foreign minister of the UK on Thursday hosting talks aimed at forming a coalition of countries to explore ways to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. 40 countries, including France, Germany, Italy and others, joined the virtual meeting.
And that Iranian recklessness towards countries who were never involved in this conflict, which we and 130 countries across the world have strongly condemned at the United Nations, is not just hitting mortgage rates and petrol prices, the cost of living, it is hitting our global economic security.
Thursday's meeting ended without any specific agreements. Next week, military planners will meet for the next stage of the talks to discuss potential mine-clearing work and more. The talks come just 1 day after President Trump said securing the strait is a job for the entire globe, not just for the U.S.
The United States imports almost no oil through the Hormuz Strait. The countries of the world that do receive oil through the Hormuz Strait must take care of that passage. Go to the strait and just take it, protect it, use it for yourselves.
The president added that another option for the countries who need oil would be to buy it from the U.S. And France says that the group of 7 countries and Gulf nations will also hold a meeting next week to discuss the situation in the Strait of Hormuz.
Our goal is to have an impact and achieve results, namely the restoration of the smooth flow of traffic.
He added that the G7 and the Gulf nations are not considering taking back the strait by force, but rather wait for the fighting to stop. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, Israel releasing this video saying its forces struck more than 50 targets of Iran's ballistic missile array during the previous 24 hours. The Israeli Air Force completed over 20 strikes targeting storage sites holding over 140 ballistic missiles. Israel also announcing it has eliminated the commander of Iran's oil headquarters. Israel says the headquarters enables activities by Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard through profits from oil sales. Arian Pasdar, NTD News.
What are the different ways the U.S. could ramp up the operation in Iran, and what are our remaining objectives? Stay tuned for analysis tonight on Capitol Report with Steve Lance at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. An end to the longest DHS shutdown in history is on the horizon. President Trump and congressional GOP leaders have rallied behind a two-pronged approach to bypass Senate Democrats on immigration funding. NTD's Melina Weisskopf has the report.
Under a new Republican plan, lawmakers want to fund most of the DHS in the coming days, and Republicans plan to go it alone to fund ICE and the Customs and Border Protection Agency in a party line package that will come in the next few months. The two immigration agencies, though, are currently funded through the One Big Beautiful Bill that President Trump signed into law last year. And the president emphasized this point when he endorsed this new two-track approach yesterday, writing, "Immigration enforcement will continue and our border will remain secure." President Trump wants this immigration enforcement funding to be on his desk no later than June 1st. Though this round of funding will not include any of Democrats' demands on changes to ICE policy. Majority Leader John Thune previously warned Democrats that this was coming if they didn't agree to a deal.
Republicans are planning to extend this ICE and CBP funding with no reforms through the end of President Trump's term to completely remove Democrats' leverage on this for the next 3 years. In the words of House Speaker Mike Johnson, we cannot allow Democrats to any longer put the safety of the American public at risk through their open border policies. As for the timeline ahead, Senate Majority Leader John Thune this morning paved the way for House lawmakers to take swift action to get most of the DHS reopened, but House lawmakers aren't due back until April 13th. Speaker Johnson may ask members to return sooner, saying that they'll act in the coming days. As for the second part of this immigration enforcement funding, Senator Lindsey Graham says he already started the process, which could take months to unfold. The last such party line mega bill took around 5 months to complete. But if Republicans are able to keep this package small, there is a chance they'll be able to move this quickly and possibly meet President Trump's deadline of June 1st. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
A major federal operation targeting healthcare fraud leads to multiple arrests across Southern California. Authorities say the suspects turned hospice care into a multi-million-dollar scheme. NTD's Christina Corona tells us more.
Federal authorities in Los Angeles have arrested 8 people during several raids across Southern California dubbed Operation Never Say Die. According to the Justice Department, 15 individuals are charged in a hospice healthcare fraud scheme worth nearly $60 million. Prosecutors say those charged include nurses, a psychologist, and a chiropractor who allegedly exploited Medicare and private insurance. The FBI served arrest warrants in Covina, Anaheim, Glendale, and Lakewood, California, and as far away as Idaho. Investigators say some suspects ran fake hospice companies, enrolling patients who were not terminally ill to bill for unnecessary care.
Medicare reimbursed these companies for services that were intended to go to patients dying from a terminal illness. Instead, these defendants recruited beneficiaries who were not terminally ill and paid them to pose as patients receiving hospice care.
An Anaheim nurse is accused of filing fraudulent claims totaling more than $9 million, running a hospice that discharged most of its patients alive.
When you go to hospice, you're going there to die. You're not supposed to have an 85 survival rate coming out of your hospice facility. That is 5 times more than the national average of 17%.
Authorities say some patients were offered cash or gifts to sign up. In another case, prosecutors say a repeat offender received $4.2 million from Medicare.
Nita Palma, 76 years old, 3-time convicted healthcare fraudster who's actually in federal prison. She's charged in a new case because she perpetuated a new hospice fraud while she's in prison.
Officials say the schemes not only cost taxpayers millions, but also put vulnerable patients at risk.
The human cost should not be forgotten. If you're willing to steal money from the American people, from patients, you're willing to sacrifice their health, and you're willing to give up their lives.
If convicted, the suspects face up to 10 years for healthcare fraud and up to 20 years for wire fraud. Christina Corona, NTD News.
Coming up, Health Secretary RFK Jr. announcing his plans to tackle the growing concern of microplastics being found inside human bodies. Jason Blair has more on that next. Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Numerous studies show microplastics are accumulating inside our bodies. The HHS wants to know what they're doing to us and how to get them out. NTD correspondent Jason Blair has more about a new program announced by Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
We are launching STOMP, which stands for Systematic Targeting of Microplastics.
HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. along with EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin announcing a new national program to better understand and measure microplastics and how to get them out of the human body.
We are focusing on 3 questions. What is in the body, what's causing the harm, and how do we remove it?
Secretary Kennedy references a study that estimates that the average person ingests tens of thousands of microplastic particles each year through food, water, and air.
Another study reports concentrations in the brain equivalent by mass to roughly a spoonful of plastic in every human brain.
Kennedy says that studies have shown them to be in human blood, lung tissue, livers, kidneys, and placentas.
And in a study of 62 placentas, every single sample contained microplastics, evidence that exposure begins before birth.
And he says not all microplastics behave the same.
Different materials accumulate in different organs and appear to drive different biological effects.
Lee Zeldin announcing new steps to safeguard U.S. drinking water from contaminants, including microplastics and pharmaceuticals.
This is a direct response to the concern of millions of Americans who have long demanded answers about what they and their families are drinking every day.
And Zeldin says it's the first time in history the EPA is designating microplastics and pharmaceuticals as priority contaminant groups. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Jason Blair, NTD News.
As the EPA is moving to regulate microplastics in drinking water, how are everyday folks feeling about the Trump administration's Make America Healthy Again initiative? NTD's Sam Wong was out on the National Mall in D.C. to hear from the people.
Do you know that microplastics exist in many human tissues, including lungs, your kidneys, and even human brains?
It's shocking, but I just recently learned that, and it's kind of appalling. At this point in time, though, I don't know, what do you do?
It's huge. I don't know a lot about it, but I would say, it's looking at some of the research, it certainly seems like that's a problem.
Our DNA trace going forward is going to be nothing but plastic because they're putting it in everything. So when we're growing and our kids grow up, they're not going to have the taste of real food. Look at the chemicals that they spray on top of our fruit and vegetables. It's all chemical. So what is chemical? Plastic.
Yeah, what do they say? We have so many ounces of it in our brain from everything that we ingest daily. Look at the plastic sea out there that's destroying the oceans from all this plastic garbage out there. When I grew up, we had glass bottles. Why can't we now?
What do you make of the fact that the HHS, I guess under RFK Jr.'s leadership, is looking into the issue of microplastic in our food supply?
I feel like if it's going to be a positive and it's a real cause for change, then I support it, if that's what it's really about. But is it going to be his choice or is it going to be the administration choice?
Fundamentally, if you look back to what he's accomplished, it's really refocusing us on the right things. And perhaps we've taken our eye off the ball, and I think he's been very focused on some key things, and that's why I would view his performance so positive so far.
Yes, definitely. Especially for your younger generations, because that's all it is disposable plastic, and it's all for the companies to make money off of. It's not to help you or I out. It's for their bottom dollar of what the CEOs are going to make.
He's bringing attention to the poisons in the food that we eat and the dangers in vaccines. The fact that he's in as secretary and he's actually, he's still fighting against money and it's still difficult, but the fact that he's there and he's able to hopefully, address this and save the next generation, we're pretty thrilled about, so.
The Justice Department is suing Morris Township, New Jersey over its fossil fuel ban for newly constructed buildings. In its lawsuit, the DOJ argues the ban is driving up energy costs for everyday Americans. Morris Township passed the ordinance in 2022. The local regulation prevents construction permits from being issued for apartment buildings with 12 or more units unless the building is all electric. The ordinance defines an all-electric building as not using natural gas, propane, or oil heaters. That includes their associated delivery systems, such as boilers, piping systems, fixtures, and other infrastructure. The lawsuit follows two others filed by the DOJ against two cities in California over their natural gas bans. The DOJ said both cities recently passed ordinances rescinding those bans. Coming up, New York-based performing arts company Shen Yun had its 5 remaining shows canceled today by the Four Seasons Center in Toronto, Canada, which they said was due to escalating threats thought to be from the Chinese regime. The details on that next. Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. A major cultural performance shut down in Canada after what police say was a fake bomb threat. Organizers say it's part of the Chinese Communist Party's intimidation targeting New York-based Shen Yun Performing Arts. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley has more.
A fake bomb threat in Toronto targeting New York-based Shenyun Performing Arts led to a series of canceled shows. Police have deemed the threats not credible, and the organizer is blaming the Chinese Communist Party, using the empty threat to stop Shenyun from performing.
We believe these threats are part of a broader campaign by the Chinese Communist Party to silence Shenyun, a performance that showcases China before communism and highlights ongoing human rights abuses in China today.
This is not just about Shenyun. This is about whether a foreign mafia regime can influence what Canadians are allowed to see.
The fake bomb threats were sent via email to multiple people at Toronto's Four Seasons Centre, threatening to blow up the theatre if the show went on. After police swept the theatre multiple times, they deemed the threats not credible.
It really hurts me to know this in my beautiful city of Toronto.
The threat worked. If it was the intent was to shut down the show, then they were successful in doing that.
Oh, I'm disappointed. I mean, I see it advertised on television. It looks like a fantastic show.
Several Canadian officials condemning the Chinese Communist Party following the threat.
We know that Shenyun has been targeted because of its effort to showcase traditional Chinese culture. Art can be provocative, and it can challenge existing power structures. And the suppression of art should not be something we tolerate here.
Shenyun has reportedly received over 150 fake bomb and death threats over the past 2 years, and they're always found to be hoaxes. This is just the first time such a hoax has led to the cancellation of their performances. Shenyun presents the beauty of China before communism and brings to light modern-day human rights abuses happening in China.
I never imagined that the same political pressure my family experienced in China could reach all the way to a free society like Canada.
We want to give a voice to those who are still voiceless today. The Chinese Communist Party uses threats and coercion to prevent people from seeing our performances.
One Shenyun MC recalls when her parents were sentenced to a forced labor camp and brainwashing center in China because they practice Falun Gong, a spiritual practice heavily persecuted in China.
After school, I watched as my classmates were picked up by their parents one by one. I waited for a long time, but no one came for me. As it began to get dark, my aunt finally arrived to take me home. My grandfather passed away. My mom was still imprisoned and was not allowed to see him one last time or attend his funeral.
Despite the setback, the performers say that they remain undeterred, continuing their global tour and bringing their message to audiences in nearly 200 cities around the world. For NTD News Washington, I'm Jack Bradley.
The Shenyun presenter in Toronto says this incident goes beyond their show, that foreign interference is a risk to all Canadians, and that baseless threats shouldn't control what they are allowed to see. Joining us now is Steve Lance, host of NTD's Capital Report and executive producer of the new film Unbroken, the untold story of Shenyun. Steve, thank you so much for joining us. Always great to see you now in Unbroken. You investigate this issue of fake bomb threats against Shenyun. I want to highlight what a would-be audience member said after the cancellation. Let's listen to that now.
If it was the intent was to shut down the show, then they were successful in doing that. So that's not fair to the performers and the people who want to see the show. But I understand the theater's position.
Steve, the local Shenyun presenter says these fake bomb threats have never led to cancellations before. Put this into perspective for us. How significant is this move?
Well, thank you so much, Tiff, for having me back on your program. It's really significant because, as you point out, all of these threats, over 200 death threats, bomb threats now coming out of China directed at this group worldwide, none of which have ever led to the cancellation of performances. Sometimes you would have buildings evacuated and the dancers and the performers, this was before any show was taking place, would be let outside, bomb-sniffing dogs come in, and then everybody realizes, oh, this is the CCP just up to its dirty tricks again, trying to increase security costs for the group, or trying to psychologically deter them or audience members from going. But everybody sort of knew that this was just a hoax and there was no credible threat to it. So this, although it's the same thing coming out of China, no credible threat to it, the fact that the theater in Toronto has canceled 5 performances, it's really concerning, and it makes you wonder what led them to do that. I think those questions need to be asked, and more importantly, I think the world community, the free and open societies, the United States, Canada, needs to take a step back and really analyze what the CCP has been able to do here, and it's time, I think, for people to speak out.
And to your point, Shenyun says they believe the Chinese Communist Party is behind this bomb threat. That is part of a broader campaign to silence the New York-based company. Talk to us about what you found in your investigation. How broad is this campaign?
Well, it's quite broad, Tiffany. In our film Unbroken, the untold story of Shenyun, there's a storyline, part of our story. We had no idea it was going to happen, of course, but two of the characters that we're following, they're Shenyun dancers, and they traveled to Taiwan to perform, and while they're there, they had similar bomb threats. They were evacuated from the theater. Everybody, came and checked it out. The authorities cleared the venue. Everybody was fine. Everybody performed. But we, from that point, that specific incident was the first time that we were able to, not us, but the Taiwan authorities were able to track those threats back to China. There's always been sort of a smoking gun or, breadcrumbs, but we didn't really have anything substantial. But that specific incident traced all the way back to China to a Huawei facility in the city of Xi'an. This particular incident that's just breaking right now out of Toronto, we're already getting reports that the threat that was sent there was from a Gmail address coming out of China. And so in our reporting, we also tie in a covert, sophisticated influence operation targeting Shenyun, coming straight from the highest levels of China all the way down with a leaked memo. And the playbook from that leaked memo is following exactly what we're seeing play out right now.
And just to emphasize, Shenyun performances involve many young artists. They're telling stories through dance, and as we saw in your film there, the fact that this is happening to them can be very hard to believe. Here's actually some of the artists reacting to this issue in Unbroken.
People go as far as endangering the well-being of our community, our families, and even our audience members. It's egregious.
We just want to go to school, get a good education, and be the best artists that we can. It's like, what have we done to deserve these bomb threats?
And Steve, despite the challenges and intimidation tactics, these artists push forward, even now calling on the Toronto venue to change course to let them perform. Why is this so important to them?
Well, I think, you mentioned some of these younger artists that are just there to show their art. There's also a lot of folks there that have fled communist China. Many of the performers in Shenyun have either experienced persecution directly or have family members that have been persecuted. One of the folks that we interviewed, who was a dancer for over a decade with Shenyun, while he was on tour performing, his father was killed in a Chinese labor camp, right? So these people are, many of them, leaving China and seeking refuge in free and open societies like Canada, like Toronto, like the United States to, have the freedom to express their artistry. And yet here they are, again, halfway around the world where they thought that they would be able to freely express their art being shut down. And so it's really concerning that, you leave that totalitarian regime and a lot of those draconian policies can chase you halfway around the world in free societies.
And expanding on that, I want to bring in some of what the Shenyun presenter said today at a press conference. Let's listen to that now.
This incident goes beyond one production. It raises serious concerns about allowing foreign interference or any threats to dictate what Canadians can see and who can express themselves. This is a risk to all Canadians.
And Steve, what are some things the public can do to support Shenyun and their freedom of expression when incidents like this take place?
Well, I think, first of all, it's important to understand the nature of what's going on here. These are not credible threats at all. This is manipulative tactics that Beijing is using with a specific purpose to cause fear, deter, and undermine this performance. No credible threat ever of any bombs or anything like that. And so if you plan on seeing a show, you should continue as usual. It's completely safe. And just don't let the CCP's terrorist gangster-style tactics get in the way of you enjoying your freedoms. And, I would say the way you could support it is look for Shenyuan's, look at their calendar and try to find a show or a theater closest to you and take a stance, because whether it's radical Islamic terrorism or the terrorist nature of the Chinese Communist Party, their motivation and agenda is just to strike fear into the hearts of people in free and open societies, to deter you from going to that coffee shop, to deter you from going to that performance hall. And so if you capitulate, then the terrorists win. And in this case, there is zero threat. There's zero credible threat that there are any bombs or anything of the sort. So go see a Shenyuan performance would be my suggestion.
Well, Steve Lance, as always, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Tiffany.
And to watch our new documentary, Unbroken, the untold story of Shenyuan, you can go to ntd.com/unbroken. The film will be available online for free through April 12th. Coming up in World Cup news, ticket prices jump for this summer's championship game. Dave Martin joins us with all the information next. Now for your sports news, we're by NTD's Dave Martin. We've got some baseball and college basketball news, but let's start in soccer. The highest prices for this summer's World Cup Championship game have been raised to just under $11,000. What other options do fans have to attend the game?
Well, there are some slightly less expensive options here, Chip, though they're still expensive. Now, that $11,000 measure is already $10,990, so pretty much $11,000. That's for the most expensive ticket. That's for the championship game. That's in July 19, East Rutherford, New Jersey. There are some lesser tickets here. The Category 2 tickets going for $7,380, and the Category 3 for $5,785 a piece. So yikes, Tiff, that's kind of a lot, I would say. Anyway, a few months ago, these tickets were about 20% cheaper, but of course, keep in mind, these are for the title game. Now, meanwhile, for Team USA's opener, that's against Paraguay on June 12th at SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, California, only the highest priced tickets are currently available. That's the tickets going for $2,735, so much less than the $11,000. In any case, this all kind of just happened after the 48-team field was finalized yesterday when Iraq beat Bolivia to secure the final spot. Now, of note, four-time world champion Italy did not qualify after getting upset by Bosnia and Herzegovina. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it. They were upset. That's the important thing. They won the World Cup 4 times. So yeah, we've got that going on. Meanwhile, it's really not even easy to get onto these tickets, Tiff. I went to the World Cup site about 4 o'clock, right? It puts you in a queue, and then it has this like circle. It says, don't close your browser or you'll get out of the queue. Like, on those 1-800 numbers for tech support when they say you're the next person or something like that. So now it's what, 6:30, so 2.5 hours later, the queue is like I'm over the halfway point for the privilege to spend thousands of dollars on these tickets. So, words of the wise for you, Tiff, or anyone at home, if you want to do this, open up, try to go like right before bedtime, and then maybe by the time when you wake up, they might be actually available, and you too can pay an arm and a leg for these tickets here. But of course, I'm someone who pays an arm and a leg for the Jets every year to not go to the playoffs. So I've been suckered plenty of times by these, but I think I'll be happy enough just to watch it on TV too.
That
You
is
too?
what I thought you were going to say for the alternative.
Yeah, the alternative, if you don't want to spend thousands of dollars, you just watch it on TV like the rest of us. So there's that option, you know.
All right, well, moving on from that, let's shift gears to the NFL because Buffalo Bills quarterback Josh Allen and his wife, actress Haley Steinfeld, announced they've welcomed a baby girl.
Yes, Steinfeld made the announcement on her Substack newsletter. She said, "Our baby girl has arrived. We're feeling incredibly grateful and blessed and savoring these early moments. Thank you so much for the love and well wishes. Love, Haley and Josh." Now, those two were married last May. They announced her pregnancy in December. Now, Steinfeld most recently starred in the movie Sinners. Now, Allen and the Bills, meanwhile, had their season ended in heartbreak fashion. I mean, somewhat typical for the Bills, unfortunately, against the Broncos in January in an overtime game. Very heartbreaking for me anyway. I was rooting for the Bills. I don't know about you, Tiff, but I was rooting for the Bills. It was a tough loss. Allen now previously talked about his excitement over becoming a dad, saying, "This is the most important thing I'll ever be in my life." So congratulations to those two. Now, one thing we didn't get, was the date of birth or the baby's name, but maybe it'll come out eventually. I guess they want privacy. So sometimes people announce that, Whenever you tell someone's going to have a baby, what's the first question to ask you? What's their name? And something like that. So maybe it'll come out, folks.
Maybe there'll be a follow-up post.
Maybe so.
Well, we'll wait for that news. Moving to college basketball, though. Yesterday, Kansas coach Bill Self announcing he will return next season as head coach.
Yes, Self released a statement yesterday saying, quote, "I remain focused and committed to Kansas basketball competing for a national championship. I look forward to seeing and hearing the best fans in college basketball next season at Allen Fieldhouse," end quote. Now, Self, who's already been inducted to the Hall of Fame, has won 17 Big 12 titles in his 23 seasons. He's been to 4 Final Fours. He's led the Jayhawks to 2 national championships. But after KU's season ended last week, he said he was going to discuss his coaching future with his family. Now, he didn't actually say it for health reasons, but this comes after he's had several health-related issues recently. Now, in 2023, he missed the Big 12 tournament and the NCAA tournament after being hospitalized because of chest tightness. He ended up having a heart catheterization and a pair of stents inserted. Last summer, he was in the hospital again, had 2 more stents inserted, and he missed their game at Colorado this past January due to being under the weather. So I am glad to see this guy back. It's very important to me as a Jayhawk fan that we have a very good head coach, and he is probably the best out there, Tiff. So good news for me. I'm sure you're happy for me too, right?
I sure am. And I'm glad you get to say all the medical terms, not me.
Yeah. I think that was nice of me trying to labor through those here. Catheterization. Sounds pretty serious,
Yes.
Whenever we go through that time where I'm going to talk about all these medical terms, that'll be at the top of the list. I'm going to find out what exactly that's for. All we know is it's serious.
Wait until all the injuries start coming in.
That's true.
All right, shifting gears to baseball, though. The Pittsburgh Pirates are promoting 19-year-old shortstop Connor Griffin to the big leagues on Friday.
Yes, he will be the first teenager in the big leagues since Juan Soto made his debut back in 2018 for Washington. Now, Griffin is considered the top prospect in all of baseball. He's the reigning consensus minor league player of the year. He boasts power, speed, and a great glove at shortstop there, which is maybe the most difficult position on the field. Pirates drafted him in the first round in 2024 out of high school, so he's set to make his debut tomorrow. Now, for today, we had just 4 games scheduled. The Twins already beat the Royals today 5-1. Tonight, the Braves are at the Arizona Diamondbacks. It's a start time of 9:40 Eastern Time. The New York Mets also are at the San Francisco Giants with a start time of 9:45 Eastern Time. Meanwhile, the Blue Jays-White Sox game today was canceled due to inclement weather. They will make it up tomorrow on Friday. So, slow day for baseball fans, but tomorrow we get more baseball and the women's Final Four starts. Remember, buckle up for that one, right? And then Saturday, the men's Final Four, and then we get the championship games, the 2 right after that. So, something to look forward to if you're a little down about these World Cup prices, Not that I'm really that down. I wasn't surprised at how much they cost, so that's just me.
In other news, lots of sports.
In other news, lots of sports, yes.
And lots of options.
Lots of options if you want to pay an arm and a leg here for these tickets.
All right, well, Dave, as always, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Tiff.
And that's all for today's news. For on-the-clock coverage, visit us at ntd.com/live or download our NTD app. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Good night.